Hello, and welcome to Guideline's continuing series of Green Elephant Better business interviews. In this series, we are chatting with key people in companies which have chosen to focus on social and environmental performance, public transparency, and legal accountability to purposefully balance people and planet with profit. This week, I've been joined by Masami Sato from B1G1. Now, B1G1, or Buy One, Give One, creates a world that's full of giving by helping businesses of any size make impacts with a diversity of giving projects. Now, the company was formed in 2007. B1G1 has come together with over 3,000 businesses from all industries around the world, creating over 260 million giving impacts. The other good news is B1G1 is certified B Corp and has been so since 2017. Now, Masami Sato is the founder and CEO of B1G1 and has endeavored to create a real win-win connections across all cultures, people, organizations to realize a different world. A TEDx speaker, I think twice I saw, author of 3 books, serial entrepreneur, mother of 2. This is one busy leader, so I better get on with it. Welcome to the show, Masami.
Hi, Russell. Thank you for having me.
So I like to ask an elephant in the room question, because there is one if you're watching on video. So you openly, where I've read about you, say that you were a shy young girl growing up in Japan. How did you transition over to a TEDx speaker, author, and serial entrepreneur? How did you do that?
I'm not sure how, but and actually I'm still an introvert, so I wouldn't regard myself as somebody who can be described with big words. I'm kind of somebody who is quite ordinary and small and still shy. But what happened was when I left Japan, and because I was a very curious person, even though I was very shy, so I wanted to see what was happening in the world. So I had a few years of experience of traveling around the world as a young backpacker, and when you are traveling in that kind of very vulnerable situation, then you can't pretend to be somebody who is perfect, right? Like you face many challenges and you need to ask for help. You need to talk with people, strangers, and deal with all the upcoming issues. So being that, I became naturally, like eventually free-spirited to be able to just simply connect with people. And that was the first time ever in my life I started to really, really enjoy connecting with people, because then my way of connecting wasn't necessarily to talk about lots of things, because I couldn't, I didn't even speak English much. So I connected with people through very simple interactions, or sharing meals together, or cooking together, stepping into a restaurant. And when I loved the food, asking people to let me help in the kitchen. So I did everything I could to share the time and connect with people and learn from their experiences. So that was kind of profound experience for me. But eventually, that took me on the journey as an entrepreneur as well, to start a business. And so my way of learning was always by doing and asking questions and working together with people, rather than going to a business management study and to learn from the theory. Or
yeah.
So
I like
that's
that.
my
So
journey.
learn by doing and get just kind of get in there.
Yeah. And I think everybody learns in different ways. Some people learn from listening, or seeing, or for me, it's about doing.
Yeah, I can see that, and it served you well. Now you say you went on a worldwide journey. You ended up, I think, in Australia. Is that where you started your first business? Or
actually, Australia was kind of later on. So I started my first business in Christchurch, New Zealand. And that was where my daughter was born 20 years ago. no, before then, previously, like I traveled to many different countries, including Australia too. But New Zealand was really the beginning of my entrepreneurship journey. And I had a small takeaway food bar, food, not like takeaway shop, which was serving food to truck drivers and people working in factories in the industrial area. So that was my very first business. And that took me to have 2 businesses. I sold them and then moved to Australia. So yeah.
Okay. And at what point, because it was the food business, I think I saw it in one video, that it was the food business that inspired you to think about, if I cook a meal here and sell a meal here, then I could give a meal away. When did that idea form?
So when I first went into business, I chose food business because I was passionate about food. Because for me, during the time of traveling, because I couldn't communicate with people with words, so food was the way for me to connect with people, because everywhere I went, if I could cook food, or I could help, with cooking, or I could be curious about food and ask questions, then people everywhere around the world really accepted me for who I was. And that was why I felt the food really brought people together. And food has huge implication on our life, like the nourishing meal we share with family, or even the nutrition factor itself and how that's tied to our quality of life. So I was so much into food, and I even worked on organic farms to learn about sustainability and also healthy life, creating well-being through food. So for me, like when I first started my very first food company, me going into fast food, food bar and then selling burgers and chips, and that was kind of my job. Initially, of course, like there was some dilemma too, but I, let go of the fixed thinking, and I improved the food in the business, served, talked with truck drivers, and they all loved just coming to see my daughter on my back, who was, always with me in the food business. And so we started this business with the mindset of do whatever we could. Here was this food bar which was losing money, and the owner wanted to get out. So we got the business for almost nothing. And that's how we built the business. And eventually, we had 2 businesses and sold those so we could keep going. But from day one, what I had in mind in my entrepreneurship journey was that I wanted to become an entrepreneur and have a business so that I could be in charge of what I choose to do with the work that I do. And because of the travel experience that I had, I've seen so many children who couldn't even go to school, complete the primary school education, or begging on the street and or working for family farm. And so seeing that reality, I wanted to do something about them. And having my own child that at that time kind of made everything much more urgent, rather than saying like I was, I'm so little and I can't change the world, or there was no more excuse I could make if I really thought about my daughter and her future. We cannot say, oh, there are too many kids out there who don't have resources, but I can't change that. Like I didn't want to continue to say that to myself, that I couldn't do anything. Right. So with that, I started my business, and I wanted to give back. So the purpose of growing business for me was that with the success that we could create with the business, we could give, we could support worthwhile programs, and perhaps help feed and educate the street children and give them the future that they deserve to have. So we had that in mind. And eventually, like with the initial 2 business success and selling those businesses, we managed to actually have a new business in Australia, which was about healthy eating. And as a frozen meals company, we started to distribute that to so many different outlets. Like we had 150 stores in Australia selling our product back then. But like I realized at that time, like just having this target or goal of, one day when we become so successful, we will build a soup kitchen. This idealism was kind of like almost not really real on the day-to-day basis, because we are wishing or hoping that one day we could do something. But that one day seems to be moving ahead of us, because every time we expand our business or improve things, then and have more sales, then we were putting all the resources back into business to try to grow our business. So we just never seem to have enough to do something at that time, whether time or money or whatever. So one day, then this simple idea came to me, and we started to imagine. I thought, what if instead of trying to do big things in the future, what if we did small things but did every day from today? And that idea of giving a meal, and for every meal we sold, that made everything change for our business, because we are no longer waiting for big success. But if we look at how much it costs to, for example, help provide a meal to a child in certain country where those children are currently not even completing school education because they stay working at home. And but when you provide free meal at school, this meal is not just about additional nutrition for the child, but becomes the motivation for the family to send their children to school, because they save money and they don't need to feed the kids like at home, right? One meal saved. So families get motivated by this meal too. And we realized that it only cost something like 25 cents at that time to do this. And that was really transformative. And sometime after we incorporated this idea into my own company, I also realized that in the world, actually, there are many different businesses, entrepreneurs, business owners who cared about the different issues in the world, but they also didn't really know what they could do to make a positive difference through their business. And they are all, very, really busy doing what they do. So we thought, what if we could make this way of giving and being, and running a business, something very simple and easy to do? Then maybe many businesses would do it. So that's how and when I sold my food company in Australia then and moved to Singapore to start the B1G1 as a global giving initiative. So that's been 14 years.
Yes, and if I can just take you back to that point where you said, from today, I'm going to start giving with every meal. Did you bring your customers along with that? Did they buy into that concept, or?
Like initial motivation is not really about like customer engagement or such, because regardless of if there is any benefit for the business, we started our business to do that, precisely that, to help children and do something, in our lives. And so, but the thing is, I realized that I was just really like grateful for, every team member and every customer that existed so that we could do this and we could make this dream business and do something worthwhile. So for me, engaging people or conveying this joy of giving was not necessarily to try to engage, but to express our gratitude. So when team members, like we had actually quite a few volunteer team members in our business, and these people came to work with us and stay with us, or help in the business, because they wanted to learn how to do good, how to work in companies that makes a difference. So we had plenty of these like purpose-driven seekers who will come to work with us, and we didn't have much money to pay them or reward them, but what we wanted to do was to make them really realize that every day when they are doing something and working with this company, they are helping make our world a better place or helping someone else. And in that sense, yes, we communicated what we were doing, but it wasn't for us. It wasn't about like CSR or strategic engagement or anything like that.
So it wasn't a marketing ploy. I suppose is what you could use giving as, oh yeah, we give so much charity, and I'm going to publicize that because, hey, look how good I am. So you avoided that on the basis that you
like. I mean, like we didn't necessarily avoid anything, but I feel like if
it wasn't
the actual motivation of the things that we do is to try to get to something to our own benefit, then actually, like no matter what you say or pretend to say, I don't think that will really convey the right message or idea or feeling to people that we connect with and communicate with. So I feel like even today, B1G1 is a different kind of initiative. We have much more developed like tools and resources that we can offer to businesses. But I feel like the most powerful part of incorporating effective giving in business is to be very genuine about the care that we feel. Because when businesses actually have the intention and deep sense of caring inside the organization and coming from the leadership itself, then actually like every decision that they make or behavior of the team members and every interactions we naturally have will express this. It's not about saying we are good business, but it's about being that business that care. And so that's why like I feel that the way we started this initiative and how we feel today or what we stand for today is pretty much still the same, with that spirit of, it's about giving because we can and we care, rather than because we have to, because it makes us look good or
and the positive view should be a kind of an afterthought. It's not the reason you do. I like that, because that really does push companies to do things without perhaps blowing their own trumpet first, so do it because it's the right thing to do.
And when companies communicate their giving with the intention that this is for them to inspire more people, because every day people live their life, and quite often it's easy for us to get the kind of feel disconnected, lonely, or demotivated because we feel small, or we feel alone, or we feel that the things we care doesn't really matter, or individually we don't have a power to transform things or change things even if we cared. Or so it's easy for everybody to feel like this at times. So when we are doing business, or when we have a company where people come and work for, then these are opportunities for us to actually spread the sense of appreciation, gratitude, inspiration, positive commitment, to make things better, and the feeling of unity and collective work. When we can create this through our business and communicate this genuine feeling with everything we do, then I'm sure it's good for business too. I'm sure we manage to attract people who aligns with that feeling. And that is good for the business than attracting people who are just thinking for themselves as well, and try to get a job opportunity that will give them biggest advantage or financial incentive, but they may not care so much about what the company is about. So if we really want to create a business that sustain and thrive long term, and then to ensure that we ourselves, like whether it's owner, you as a business owner, or team members inside the organization, because we are spending so much time, like 8 hours or more hours a day working together. So we all want to be doing things that matter. And so it's a real win-win to be having this giving focus and great caring culture.
I mean, I picked up on one of the titles of your one of your books, which is Giving Business, Creating Maximum Impact in a Meaning-Driven World. Do you think the world is meaning-driven? Because it does feel sometimes that the world is kind of all take and not really much about give.
I think so. When I was young, I was a little bit judgmental and skeptical about what was going on, because when I saw that growing up, my parents were so busy, because they worked so hard, and my dad was almost never at home. And when I saw him at home, he seems to be quite stressed and angry. And then all that was for us to kind of get more, get more money, or go and do more shopping, or so. When I witnessed that and felt a little bit lonely growing up, and then went out to the world and started to see people who had nothing, like very little, struggling, or they were living with poverty, but they were willing to share their meal with me, and I used to think like so guilty about receiving things from people who had so little, and then thinking like, oh, but in Japan, my country, people had so much and they always tried to get more stuff, but they weren't seemingly always happy. And then I kind of really questioned it and thought that maybe consumerism was driving these problems. And so in my own resentment, I went to live in the countryside, thinking like, I want to create a self-sufficient life and not to get sucked into consumerism. And so that was me, like when I was younger. But then eventually being in the environment, living with nature and surrounded by people and being in a simple community, I realized that actually maybe we were all the same. Everybody wanted to just to be happy, and maybe we mistook our happiness, that we thought that having more stuff or having greater success than others or being more famous or those things, we thought those things will give us the happiness, but actually, today we see so many issues related to mental health. And so even though we have this like abundance, material abundance in our life, but then we may not feel abundant inside. So I think that when we let go of the judgment and then realize that fundamentally, we probably want to have the same thing, which is the sense of connection, fulfillment, love, and all those things. So I think the world today at some level seems to be a little bit hopeless about the status of this world. But at the same time, when we can unlock this human potential of bridging the gap and connecting people together and removing the judgment, then we can actually come together to solve all of the issues that we face. So
yeah, and again, what the whole premise of the B1G1 is little and often, instead of trying to find some giant piece of profit that you can push over, do it gradually and make a difference. Brilliant. So in terms of this model that the B1G1 presents, I'm a consulting company. Obviously, buying one of my days, giving one isn't quite so. It's not like for like stuff. What's the model that you offer in B1G1?
So it's very simple, even though it's very complicated inside. But the actual outlook or the initiative itself is simple. So if you imagine, it's about embedding tangible impact action, such as a kind of expression of kindness, and embedding that into the business activity that you have regularly. So for example, some of our members, B1G1 businesses, may say, every time we have a great Zoom call or event, we will make great things happen. And it could be like, oh, let's plant a tree to celebrate such a fantastic conversation we had. Or it could be, let's help educate a child for 1 week or for 1 day. Or so, and then in the B1G1 initiative, we have carefully selected, vetted projects that are listed with micro unit of impact. So let's say if you are passionate about people's access to clean water, and then if you try to kind of think about a big thing like, okay, I want to build a well and help build a well for a community, then that might be a little bit big for you to do it now.
Yeah.
But what we do is we work with the selected charity organizations that meet our criteria, and then help them break down the impact to a micro unit, because they have the experience and the financial budget and reporting to break down this. So one well, for example, might cost $5,000 US. And then, but we have a statistics around how many people are in each of those communities and how long that well would last without too much repair and maintenance. Then take those figures to do the breakdown. So it could end up with like giving access to well, meaning clean water for one person for one day, could be just 1 cent. So then if it's 1 cent, then suddenly any business without excuse can actually link this with something. So they might say, even every email we send, we will give 1 day's access to water and give 1 cent, right? Like, so it doesn't have to be like a, almost like Tom's shoes model where you give for a sales transaction to create the one buy one give one model. So that's why we don't call B1G1 today buy one give one, because it could give a fixed image. But this is about really like turning every good thing that happens in business, and sometimes bad things, like every type of people spot, like we actually do this. We can turn like those experience, whatever the experience in business, into a meaningful impact action. Yes. And then we then allow the members actually create a habit around it. Whether automating the giving tracking, like a business action tracking with API, or set up a monthly automated giving doing carbon offset for every team member they have in their business. Or so there are like the cool ways and many different ways the businesses can embed giving, and many of them might even like let their team members decide some of the creative ways that they do their giving. And so that's kind of B1G1 model, and it's a little bit complex inside, as I said, but the experience of giving is actually very, very simple and easy to do.
Yeah. And I think that's what I found is when I went through the process, because I hadn't joined B1G1, and I obviously heard about you and started to look through the big struggle is trying to think, what do I want to impact? I must admit. Now you align all of your projects. I've got so many questions. I can't fit them all in. All of your projects are linked to the SDGs. Now, the Sustainable Development Goals set by the UN, for those people that don't know, are targeting 2030 with some fairly challenging, possibly impossible to a certain extent, goals. Why the SDGs? Why did you align to that?
Yeah, so if like, let's say we say, sustainable development goals developed by UN or United Nations, some people think like, oh, that's just like a big thing again, right? Because UN is a big institution and not everybody might resonate with that. Like no challenge with UN, but that like sometimes people feel. So the reason why we incorporate with it, the SDG, is not necessarily to make like the B1G1 way of giving more impressive or anything like that, but to allow every business of any size to understand and contribute toward the collective vision and goal. And I think the sustainable development goals, which also called the global goals in a simple way, because this is the goals for the world. It's not just about for the government or for the big wealthy individual, donors or foundations to actually do something for you, but it's about for you to be aligned with these goals, so you can make a contribution, whether as a business owner or even individuals or people working in those companies. So I think the global goals, the SDGs, are the first goals that the world ever had as shared goals, which also invite businesses to participate in. And that's why we see, like from the beginning, we saw from the beginning of the SDGs, we saw that this is the best opportunity for even like small businesses in our initiative to come and align with the SDGs. So that's why all the projects that we have in B1G1 categorized with a simple categorization like education, environment, health, or something like that for ease. But at the same time, we also use the 17 global goals categorization. So if somebody wants to contribute to a particular SDG, life underwater, for example, they can search the project in B1G1 using that category. And then also when you give, we give them things like an impact counter widget that shows the live impact count of your giving in terms of which SDGs you've created, how many impacts, or simple breakdown of how many number of trees you planted or how many days of access to education you've given. And these widgets can be like embedded on the website as well. So I think this is great. This is probably the greatest opportunity ever. And we need this today because we really need to unite and to start actually doing things rather than keep talking about things. So we definitely incorporate SDGs to motivate these businesses that we work with and appreciate them for their giving they do.
And to those people that haven't been perhaps introduced to it in their business, it perhaps encourage them to think about how they directly impact them in what they do as well, because they could be doing things which would help responsible consumption or create better, decent work and economic growth. So there are good things you can align to as a business as well, but this would be a way of actually contributing to things that you can't. I can't think of how I necessarily could stop hunger. I suppose there are some local things I could do, but my business doesn't actually deliver that. But I could influence it, but through the B1G1 model. I think it's brilliant. I'm looking at the statistics. I would encourage anybody, and there will be links in the show page, to go to your website and have a look at the impacts page and see the number of projects that you've got going on. How do you find a worthy project?
So initially, like early days, most of these organizations were introduced to us through referral, like people who already knew about B1G1 but knew some great charity organizations that they were supporting before. Like these people and businesses referred organizations to us. But today, B1G1 is a little bit more known. So we hear from charity organizations who directly approach us as well. Or we sometimes actively try to recruit organizations based on the request from members, because we continuously look at the data and then see what kind of projects we can have more of because they are already very well supported. Or every time our members actually do a project search, using a combination of filters, because it's a bit like Amazon for kindness, like you can have many search categories and find the impacts you want to create rather than trying to find the product you want to purchase. So the experience, part of the experience is like a online shopping type of experience, even though like B1G1 is not really just about that. It's about embedding giving. So we focus on that too. But when people cannot find the particular project with the project search, then we also ask them for recommendation. Like, so the system would say, oh, sorry, we don't have this, specific required project with this requirement. So if you know any organizations, then tell us. Or so we look into this and then try to bring in new projects in B1G1 gradually as well.
Brilliant. I'm fascinated. I'm gonna spend my time digging into the projects and see how we can be that little bit more kinder. I do like that concept. I think I'm going to have November as Kind Month because I've got coming up an interview with a guy called Magnus who runs a kindness consultancy, and putting kindness into the business seems to be it's the right thing to do, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, like imagine like, in the business, if you are setting a goal, and then if your business said to the team, okay, this year we are going to make X $1 million revenue or profit, or how many sales, or these are the goals that are important for businesses to have, but it may not be necessarily always fully motivating for the people who are working in the business too. And so having that and also giving goals, for example, and then say how many trees, like when we achieve this goal, we get to plant 10,000, 1,000 trees. And when everybody can see that they are also working toward something that is different from their own benefit or company's benefit, then that actually adds extra meaning, because when people feel like kind and caring, that unlocks much more great like potential and creativity in our problem solving power as well. So I definitely think that giving brings so much value and benefits to businesses, but when we primarily get motivated to the value itself or benefit itself, then that could kind of like take the power away. So the important part is understanding that it's important for us to do, but also to have the intention of doing good as the central aim for doing this. Then I think that would be the best way forward.
Yeah, I love that. Okay. I know. Yeah, as I said before, you're a busy person. So we'll wish kind of one final question I'd like to ask is BCorp. Why did you become a BCorp? Because you're already doing some pretty amazing things. Why would you need the certification?
Okay. So B1G1 is an initiative, but under this B1G1 initiative, we have two organizations underneath. One is the social enterprise, which is registered as a business. And another one is the charity. So when businesses are actually giving, then all the money goes to the charity body, and charity side does, with an independent board, set all of the criteria for the charity program. B1G1 what they call the program, and then also manage all of the funding, right? Like, but the company side exists to create the sustainability for its own model. So we have a membership model where every business will contribute a little bit toward this fund called the Movement Fund, and this is, gives us the basis of income that we have to build a system or create resources and add value to the businesses that we work with. Okay. Like so, with the business side, even though it's already a social enterprise, because the primary focus is to maximize the impact that the businesses create. So we already have a social mission strongly incorporated in our business. But at the same time, if as a company, we are committed to, maximizing our business impact and outcomes, then we also wanted this organization to have some form of external benchmarking, because we can very easily say we have a strong sense of mission and purpose. And the money we create goes back to business to develop these things, right? Like we could say that, but at the same time, business's operation has many other factors, such as what kind of environmental impact that we are creating as a company, or are we actually dealing with or treating our team members in the best way, and complying with all sort of things, or are we setting like a next milestone to improve the way we operate as a company? So if you are in silo and working alone, you may not know what else can be done. But when we are BCorp, this definitely gives us so much more challenge that we need to work toward to improve many different aspects of our business operation. So that's why like BCorp is an important part of our company now. And we want to invite many businesses, whether the B1G1 businesses or other businesses, to consider doing more and more gradually. So start with something small. BCorp may be a bit too hard for lots of businesses, but like if businesses start with simple micro giving with B1G1, or do other things like allocate a little bit of their time to volunteer for local charity, or go and clean up the beach nearby or parks nearby, or so businesses can start with simple things first. But then as they grow, they can start looking for other more challenging things that they can do to become even more sustainable or caring or committed businesses that do more good in the world. So
Yeah,
highly recommend it.
brilliant. Okay, so become a B Corp if you can, but do something. Just do something. So if you were to translate, obviously we're giving a lot of thought for people that are in business, and what kind of tip would you give to an individual?
Individuals actually being, working for a business, they have a great influence today. So if you are working for a company and you think your company and your team can do even more to do good in the world, then you as a part of the team, you can share this idea, with the business you are working with, because it's good for everybody. And then another part is we as individuals living everyday life, then of course, like you could choose to support businesses that you think is demonstrating good value and values and qualities in the world through your purchasing choices, or you could perhaps share these ideas with other businesses as well. Or you could participate in more personal, like at a personal level, different opportunities to help create more good or spread the awareness, talking about the positive things, because today's world, we seem to be so well connected, but in the open sharing channels, like on the internet, for example, I think people are starting to become open to talking quite a lot of negative criticism openly, but we do less of really acknowledging the positive effort or sharing good news. So I think the more we actually become the person who focuses on how to add more value, how to recognize people, how to share the things that we could do to create a positive change than spreading negative news to create more fear. So we could individually play a part in changing the way the world works, and also using our connection, like our friends, our family, to have the dialogue that really like listen and appreciate the differences that we have, but to really unite, that to remind ourselves how well we are connected already. So yeah, there's so much we could do even as individuals.
Yeah, I mean, that's quite a tip. But united positivity and action. I like that as a tip. Would you have a recommendation that you would suggest people go watch or read or look at?
Yeah. Of course, that one thing is, if you are interested in B1G1, then please go to b1g1.com and find out more. Or you could find me on LinkedIn and follow me. But I think today there are lots of important conversations that we have. And if you are working in businesses, then I recommend a book called Net Positive, authored by Paul Pullman, who we deeply respect. And you can learn about how businesses can do actually, become net positive, not to be net zero, but net positive. So that's an interesting one. And also, like earlier this month, we had COP26 and global leaders came together. One of the standout speeches that I have seen is that was delivered by Sir David Attenborough, and his speech was very, very powerful. So I highly recommend that you watch the full version of the recording, and that gives us just such like sense of urgency about us coming together to do the things and taking actions, not just to talk more about things we can, but we can do, but it's about doing the things we can. So I highly recommend that as well.
Brilliant. Okay, yeah, I couldn't agree more. That it was quite a striking presentation that Sir David Attenborough made. Yeah. Okay. So as we rush to the end, I've got some fact or fakes that I'd like to test you on. So I'll read out a statement, and you have to decide whether I've modified it and it's wrong and it's a fake, or whether it is in fact a fact.
Okay.
And of course, all facts are challengeable. So first fact, or fake? 2020 saw a crash in the level of donations of time and money made to charity. Is that a fact or a fake?
Fake.
So, fake. Wow, straight in. So you obviously have a view of that. What is that? You're right. You're absolutely right.
Actually, 2020, right? Like 2020, at the beginning of the year, we definitely saw crash, right? Because everybody went into like a self-preservation mode. But toward the later part of 2020, we actually saw a surge of giving, in B1G1 too. But I think it happened to overall, giving space in general as well. So
okay, no, you're absolutely correct. Okay, so well done.
Yay.
Let's try another one. According to the World Population Review, and looking at helping strangers, donating money and giving time, Ireland is the island of Ireland is the most giving country in the world. Is that a fact or a fake?
Oh, that's tricky. Could be fake, could be fact, but I would say fake.
You're right again. Who do you think is the best country for giving?
Was it Australia?
Well, actually, I was quite surprised. So Ireland is 5th, but it is the highest in Europe. 4th is Australia. 3rd is New Zealand. So I can see where you got your spirit of giving from. 2nd is Myanmar, because it does take into account poverty as well, and how much these people are. But Myanmar's got a lot of Buddhists, so a very giving spirit there. And the 1st is the United States, which was quite interesting to me. And apparently they've been first for quite some time, but they're dropping. So it leads me to my final fact or fake, which is in the United States, corporations contribute just 20% of the donations made to charity. Is that a fact or a fake?
I don't know the most recent figure. What I know is that if that question was asked like 4 or 5 years ago, it would have been fake because it was far less than that. But today, I don't know if it's increased to 20%, then could be fact, but just because I don't know the recent figure. But
so you're saying fact?
5%.
You're saying fact, V?
Yeah, I can say fact. I can get one question wrong.
Unfortunately, you've got all questions right. You've, for the first time ever in history, I have been royally defeated.
Oh, wow, yay.
Well done. So yeah, it is the corporations just, I mean, I say just, it's still good, but corporations could do a lot more, couldn't they?
Yeah, sure. But it's increased though, because it used to be like 5%. It was astonishing. Yeah. More individual and foundation giving was like a larger majority. So it's growing. For the second point about the US as being the most generous country for giving, I kind of think that statistics might include like religious giving, because churches are like registered as non-profit, right? And the US have a culture of tithing, and that could be part of the reason why it's number one. And then if we look at the countries like Australia, I think large majority of giving goes to also international aid around the world. Yes. Of course, local giving as well, but yeah, so that's.
Yeah. Okay. Well done. Congratulations. It's been a delight to talk to you, and really chuffed to have been able to make the connection and to take some of your valuable time. And so, Masami, thank you very much for joining us on the Green Elephant Show.
Yeah, thank you so much for the great conversation. I enjoyed it so much. And thank you so much for listening, whoever is listening here. Thank you for your time.
Good message. Thank you. Thanks for listening to Guidelines Green Elephant Show. We really hope that you found it both informative and entertaining. Make sure you don't miss any of our chats with other organisations by subscribing to either our podcast, which is available on all good providers, or the Green Elephant YouTube channel. Please don't forget to spread the word with others. If you have any questions about being or becoming a B Corp or any comments and suggestions about the show, please do get in touch. You can email studio@greenelephant.show or visit our website greenelephant.show. Or you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube or Twitter by searching for Green Elipod or The Green Elephant Show. And you can also review the show on Google and Apple Podcasts. Join us next time. In the meantime, we hope you have a sustainable and socially responsible week.